Whistleblowers play a crucial role in exposing corruption and promoting transparency in democratic societies. However, often those who speak out against wrong face severe consequences. So to speak more on the role of whistleblowers in Africa's democracies and whether enough is being done legislatively to protect whistleblowers, I'm joined by whistleblower activist, advocate Adila, who's been at the forefront of advocating for stronger legal protections for whistleblowers in Africa. Advocate, thank you very much indeed for joining us. We appreciate you coming through to the studio this morning. So it's exactly what my intro said. Had it not been for whistleblowers in South Africa, on the continent, around the world, some of the greatest atrocities would not have been exposed. So is there enough legislation to protect whistleblowers?
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your show. Firstly, I do think there are legislations in place, but there isn't sufficient means to protect the whistleblowers.
Right. Because
also whistleblowers are not aware of their rights as well. So when they blow the whistle, they don't know, they have the section 188A11 when you start being disciplined for trumped up charges. So there is more that can be done to protect the whistleblowers, and our legislation is not sufficient.
Why is this not enough? What do you think needs to be added? Because I would make an example. In some instances that you and I had spoken about much earlier, in instances where an employee blows the whistle on something, the employer would then use tactics like digging up or looking for something to pin on the employee, dating back 2 years, 3 years, anything to get rid of the whistleblower who's shone a light on something. How rife is that?
Oh, that is as real as can be. I have recently went to court where an employee had the same problem. He blew the whistle on lack of governance within the organization. And after he blew the whistle, he was then suspended. And while he was in suspension, they had employed the services of an investigator to try and look up dirt on the employee. And this dirt the so-called dirt goes back to like 2 years. As an employee, you could easily have finger trouble or in a rush sign something off. But those things are being dug up on whistleblowers so that they could suffer occupational detriment.
Is it perhaps that there are legal loopholes? Because we're still seeing the persecution of whistleblowers.
100%. There is definitely loopholes, like the section 188A11 that was implemented to assist whistleblowers.
What does that mean, just for the benefit of our viewers?
Sure. What happens is if an employee suffers occupational detriment and you are then going to start the process to discipline the employee based on these trumped up charges, the employee can approach the CCMA and say they want this disciplinary to be considered under the section 188A, subsection 11 of the Labour Relations Act. And then what transpires is the CCMA has to determine if they have jurisdiction, meaning you've got to have shown that you are, one, a whistleblower, you've acted in good faith. That's instrumental in them determining whether or not they have the jurisdiction to look at the disciplinary under that section. So it's not like the employee will avoid being disciplined, but it will be taken into that context. So everything will be looked at. All those charges that you bring against the employee will be looked in the context. Is the employee being persecuted having blown the whistle? So that's the whole point of it. But the challenge you have is when the employee approaches the CCMA, there's a time lag. So while the CCMA is determining whether or not this matter should be heard under section 188A11, or even setting a date to determine jurisdiction, then you have the employer running a parallel process to discipline the employee. So the risk you take, the employee, before getting to CCMA, could get dismissed in the process.
Yeah. I mean, what more then can be done? I think this is not the first time we're having this discussion, and this is something that we often hear about, people blowing the whistle on massive corruption. I mean, we've seen just here in Gauteng what had happened at the Tembisa hospital, and a number of, we always look back to people like Babita Deokaran. There are many other people like that who've blown the whistle and effectively closed the lid on widespread looting running into hundreds of millions of rand. Had it not been for them, none of that would come to light, or the looting simply wouldn't stop. What more can be done? Are governments taking this seriously? Does there also need to be some kind of political will? Because hypothetically, these are people who are also trying to, I guess, I don't know if I should call it a good service. Is it a good service?
Definitely. I mean, it takes a lot for a whistleblower to, blow the whistle on something.
Given the consequences.
100%. The risks are so high for a whistleblower because even after, assume you blow the whistle at your previous employment, when you try and get another job, you're seen as a troublesome employee.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult. And they then suffer further repercussions because then they don't have finances to look after their children, their houses go, their vehicles they're losing the process. So it becomes a serious problem for these whistleblowers. And it obviously then creates a problem going forward where whistleblowers are reluctant to come forward. Even if they know there's a certain corruption, because the risk of losing your job, you are not going to blow the whistle.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much, Advocate. I really do appreciate your time. It actually makes me think to a couple of days ago when there was the judgment in the Life Esidimeni inquest that was being handed down by Judge Tifo. And I guess the greater story there had been the cost of what those families suffered, not just having lost their loved ones, but the cost of blowing the whistle on what was taking place after their loved ones were transferred to unlawful and illegal NGOs, which resulted in their deaths. So thank you very much indeed. We do appreciate your time. Thank you very much indeed for coming through.